Aloha, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining for the press conference. We will begin in about 5 minutes, so stand by and we will get started at about 5:05. Good afternoon. We'll get started in about 1 minute. Okay, good afternoon. Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the National Weather Service Central Pacific Hurricane Center press briefing, 5 p.m. press briefing for Hurricane Douglas. Starting off with, here's the latest situation with Hurricane Douglas. Continues to be a Category 3 major hurricane. At 5 p.m. is located 665 miles east of Hilo, or 865 miles east-southeast of Honolulu. Maximum sustained winds are 115 miles per hour, and the present movement is towards the west-northwest at about 20 miles an hour. It's a fairly rapidly moving hurricane. It's still a ways out, but moving quickly in the direction of Hawaii. Changes with this advisory. First of all, a hurricane watch has been now issued for the island of Oahu. And we continue to have a hurricane watch in effect for Hawaii County, Maui County, and that includes all of the islands of Maui County, as well as now adding Oahu to the hurricane watch. So hurricane watch means the hurricane conditions are possible with anywhere within the watch area within the next 48 hours. There are other areas that are of concern as the track of Douglas carries it across all of the Hawaiian Islands. And so those in Kauai should also continue to monitor the situation as the system progresses. So the expectation for Douglas is that the motion, the 20-mile-per-hour west-northwest motion, will continue through Saturday, and then it will slightly decrease in forward speed and turn to the west. So on that forecast track, Douglas will be very near the main Hawaiian Islands, beginning Saturday night and continuing through Sunday night. As Douglas approaches the state, we expect a gradual weakening trend to continue. However, Douglas is still forecast to be near hurricane strength as it nears the Hawaiian Islands. So as far as impacts that would affect, possibly affect the state, the strong winds, big surf, and heavy rainfall and flash flooding. Total rainfall accumulations with Douglas are expected to range anywhere up to 6 to 10 inches, with isolated maximum amounts of 15 inches possible. This amount of rain can result in life-threatening flash flooding and landslides. For the surf, we could have very big surf on east-facing shores, and even other shores as well could be affected depending on where Douglas transits across the state. For the strong winds, hurricane force winds could result in damaging wind conditions in any portion of the watch area within the next 48 hours. Onset time of those winds look like at earliest Saturday night for the Big Island and for Maui, and Sunday for Molokai, Lanai, and Oahu. And again, with Kauai, no watch has been issued yet, but we do expect those conditions possibly to spread into that area later on. An additional watch could be issued in the future forecast. That's the latest update from the Central Pacific Hurricane Center on Hurricane Douglas. Be happy to answer any questions. My colleague, Leanne Eaton, will read those questions off.
Great, thanks, Chris. We have a couple questions come in. When was the last time a hurricane made direct landfall in?
The last time that a hurricane made direct landfall of hurricane strength, well, we had a strong hurricane in Hurricane Iniki in 1992, hit the south shore of Kauai. That's probably the most notable. We did have quite a bit of damage with Hurricane Isel as it moved into the southeastern portion of the Big Island, did quite a bit of damage in the Puna district of the Big Island. And that was the last strong storm. We've had weaker tropical storms making landfall since then.
Great. I have another question asking about storm surge, and that it was no reference, there's no reference to storm surge in the latest hazards affecting land statement. So is storm surge not a threat for this storm? If so, why or why not?
Storm surge could be a threat with this storm. At this time, we're still assessing what that threat might be. That said, anytime we have strong winds blowing onshore, anytime we have these very big swells, these big waves bringing breaking wave action towards the coast, that is when we have the conditions favorable for storm surge. So we'll continue to assess those areas as well. Storm surges really strongly depend on the movement of the storm, and so we'll be able to give you a better idea as we get closer to the event.
Great. We have another question asking about the terrain and wind gusts over it, and how does this compare to winds that we would see around the eye wall?
Okay, so anytime winds blow over the terrain, there's an acceleration effect. So that effect from terrain is independent of the winds that you see in the circulation in the center of a tropical cyclone. And we've seen where these very strong hurricanes are heavily impacted when they interact with land. And so the tightly packed circulation around the center of the hurricane, it can be easily disrupted when it reaches an area of land. That being said, if you have a very strong hurricane, you're producing a very big vacuum effect into the center of the storm, and that's when the winds can accelerate over the terrain and become even stronger. And it really heavily, with terrain, it really heavily depends on the direction of the wind in comparison to the orientation of the mountains. Those are impacts that will be situational depending on where the center of Douglas goes.
All right, looks like we have one more question that's come in and saying that the State Department of Transportation is advising of wave and wind action. What other area of vulnerabilities exist in Maui County, given what you know about Douglas?
All the vulnerabilities are very similar across the state at this point, and that's just the degree of uncertainty that we still have on the exact track of Douglas. So I think that what we want to do is be prepared for the worst possible conditions that would be associated if Douglas made a direct impact. In the case of the question for Maui County, if there's a direct impact in Maui County or Maui Island, they could see all of those conditions happening at the same time. And that's what's so dangerous about these hurricanes, is that you don't just see the heavy rainfall, but on top of that, you can see very strong winds. And on top of that, you can see pounding surf and storm surge. And so all of these layered impacts is what makes a hurricane as dangerous as it is. And you need to be prepared for all of those possibilities. Again, if the hurricane tracks further away from land, we don't see that severe of conditions. But if you're prepared for those conditions to come to your location, then you're better off if they don't ever make it.
Great, Chris, thanks. Audrey would like you to state your title and your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, forgot to do that. Hello, my name is Chris Brenchley. I'm the director of the Central Pacific Hurricane Center in Honolulu, Hawaii.
I think with that ends our questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Leanne, and thank you everyone for your participation. And we appreciate your partnership in getting the word out so that the citizens of Hawaii can be prepared for the potential of a hurricane landfall. Thank you. Next press conference will plan to be held tomorrow morning after the 5 a.m. forecast advisory package. Thank you. Good evening.